Hey y'all, it's Tana with the Juice Box coming in to let you guys know that we're continuing where we left off with Haley and Amanda. Their podcast is awesome, and we were out last week because we got married. Jarrett and I got married, so I am officially Dr. Hicks, and so happy to be so. But pick up where you left off on the last episode and listen in. We'll see y'all next week. We love y'all. We thank y'all. And we'll see you when we see you.
Do you, where did that inspiration, that outside method come from? Because if you're stuck in this world where it's be a man, do this remedy, take this medicine, where did this outside influence come from to be holistic and all natural and change it up?
Really, it was in point blank. The other things weren't working. Just being a man in those terms wasn't working. The medication wasn't working. So all the different trial and error that was, over years or decades almost, it pushed me to, well, let me try to figure out something that will help, opposed to being told, this will help you and take this. So yeah, it was a lot of that journey wasn't a flip of a switch. It was a lot of trial and I wouldn't say error, but it was a lot of learning from things that weren't working. So after so long, you got to figure out a different path and keep trying. And that was kind of the thing I think I learned throughout that period and still am learning is that we got to keep trying. Keep trying stuff out and keep pushing, because there is a better place for us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all these things, if we continue just to, keep pushing.
Hmm. I think that's really important for people to hear, because I think people that deal with depression and anxiety specifically, I think sometimes it can feel like there is no out of it. There is no coming out of it. There is no solution
when things aren't working, especially.
Yeah, and it's good to hear when people have come to the other side. Not saying that you probably never deal with it anymore, but that you have ways to manage it, and you've found things that
Sure.
really help maintenance it, right? Like to keep it in check. Because I experienced anxiety for the first time 3 years ago, totally out of the blue, and my biggest fear was to ever take medication. I grew up, my family's really like no medicine, holistic. Like we always went to holistic doctors. And so I was afraid, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to get on a anti-anxiety medicine. I'm going to be like a dulled person or something. And so I started going to a holistic doctor and finding those tools and those remedies and working, like you're saying, it's so much more than just that. It's the tools within yourself, the meditation and things like that. I'm not saying I don't have spikes of that anxiety, but I know how to manage it, and I know how to maintain my life. And I think it's so important for people to hear that you can do that.
And you can kind of take the power back. Like
exactly.
That's really what it is.
Everything that you talked about before that wasn't working, it was a solution that was outside of yourself.
Right.
Exactly.
And then you're like, I changed my diet, the food I put in my body, like,
no question. And that really is powerful. And like you said, it's not I'm not at that destination. We're still having to deal with, those spikes. Hell, even now, right? We're getting married next week. Yeah, and I'm starting to meditate at work while I'm at lunch. Those things is that, this is a high stress time. Yeah. So, I've been here before in whatever other situation, now I have the tools that, will help me, wade those waters as opposed to just drowning in that emotion.
Exactly. And I commend him for being proactive, because I think mental health and mental wellness is partially understanding what your ailments are, but also understanding how to be proactive and knowing when things become stressful or things become anxiety inducing, what to do to remedy that and prevent it from happening, right? So yeah, definitely agree with that. And I think all of what he's saying is part of my why in terms of my experience with my family, but also coming from two parents who were very, I think probably like you, Amanda, my parents are holistic and wanted to have natural remedies and very like spiritual in terms of meditation and handling issues. So I come from a foundation that kind of gave me the tools to be able to take care of myself in a way that didn't require medication. On top of getting a degree in kinesiology, exercise, sports science, I was not an athlete, but I understood athleticism and, well, golf, but that's not, it's a thing, but it's not that athletic if you have a cart to drive things around.
It's totally athletic. Come on,
it's a skill. I think it's a skill more than athleticism, but either way, having that background experience in kinesiology and health made me want to take care of myself and prepare for, you know, my future, my family, providing different exercises for my grandma who suffers from arthritis and back problems. All of those things kind of drove why I'm in this kind of space. Right. But veganism, I think, is what brought us together, because we were kind of talking to each other on Twitter via Game of Thrones time, like just trying to figure out like who each other were. And we came to a point where we realized that both of us were vegan. And one day Jarrett made this burger. It was like some kind of impossible meat burger or something. And he posted it on Instagram. And I was like, oh, that looks really good. And I think somehow in the exchanging of phone numbers, he was like, well, let me tell you about it. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. It was around Christmas time. I was on my way home from my parents' place. And he calls me and he tells me about it. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Sounds good. All right. Nice talking to you. He's like, wait, hold on. And like from there,
the burger.
Right.
I thought he just wanted to describe how good it was. So yeah. So from that point on, we found a lot in common, including all of this health stuff. And I had been talking to my mom about CBD, and I tell him about it as he's experimenting with all of these juice flavors. And I'm like, well, what if you were to put CBD in the juice? And he was like, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. He slept on it for a while, and then he was like, I think I want to put CBD in the juice. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So
I know. It's a metaphor of getting married.
Yeah.
Like you planting a seed.
Definitely, right? She was planting it, and I feel like it's most men. I don't know, but it took some watering, right? It was, the seed was there. I didn't accept it initially, but yeah, it clicked, and eventually it clicked, and it was like this has to be our avenue.
And at that point, I wasn't even like a business partner. I was his girlfriend who was giving him advice. And it wasn't until he moved to Dallas that he was like, you've been helping me with all of this stuff. Why don't you partner up with me? And I was like, I don't know. Like, we're not even married. Like, that's a big deal. Like, money's involved. I don't know if we can do this. So I don't know what convinced me, honestly, to do it. But I was like, okay, I guess I'll try this out. I think I knew.
Loved me.
I did love him, and I do love him.
And I needed it.
But I felt that our relationship was stronger than whatever would have happened with the business anyway. So whether it would have, skyrocketed or failed or whatever, I was willing to take the risk because it wasn't something that would break us, I felt. So, yeah.
So y'all, so Jarrett comes from his own experiences with his mental health and finding his solutions through whole foods, through CBD, and also you're saying your father's health kind of spurred you on for that as well. And then Tana, your background in studying health and kinesiology and everything, it kind of was like the perfect match. But one thing that we have in common with you guys is that we read Simon Sinek's books about finding your why.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you guys articulate your why statements like around what you do? Do you have that kind of, I know you have it figured out, but can you articulate it for us?
Yeah, I think what we found out in all of that time, number one is that we shared that same why.
Mhm.
And I think what it is
That's
that,
so crazy. But
right, but it's, we wanted to help other people, well, at the time, specifically people of color
Mhm.
that didn't have the access to healthcare or better ways or habits of eating and drinking and what have you, but to, like you said earlier, of planting that seed that there is a better way. So our why was to, from our different experiences, was to encourage better health habits, to give you a better option, but to know that because these things have been around for thousands of years, this is not a failed medicine. Food, fruits, vegetables, herbs, those things have been healing us from the beginning of time. And so I think our why was that we wanted to make sure that we were in that space that we could provide a natural health care, if you will, that can help you physically and mentally.
And I think living in the area that we live in, it's important that we address the community, and the community being predominantly Black and Brown, knowing that we're providing not only a product, but the knowledge, right? So even if people were to never buy our juice, they buy it one time, or we give a sample or whatever it is, and they're like, wow, this is something that I haven't experienced before. We're providing like the first steps in a journey that could be lifelong, right? So it's not just, here's a product, here's a solution for whatever problem you have. It's like, here are the steps that you can take. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's every other day, whatever the case may be, these are the steps that are useful in prolonging your life,
how is it that you guys are educating people on these steps outside of just selling your product?
So that was more so when we had events. So when we had events, it was much easier to be face to face and communicate with people and say, like, these are the benefits. Like in our juices, we talk about our ingredients. Like, for example, Orange Mood has carrot, turmeric, and
Love that one, by
orange. That was so weird. And we talk about the benefits of vitamin C, of anti-inflammation, of vitamin D. Like, there's so many different things within that juice that you don't necessarily have to have that juice. But if you eat carrots and you eat oranges, maybe put a little turmeric in your food every once in a while. These are the benefits that you're going to get from that, right? So just understanding what you're putting in your body. Like, I hate to say the cliche, you are what you eat, but you are what you eat. And we were watching this other show called, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name, but they were talking about, like, when you eat stuff and then you go to the bathroom, it goes into the environment. So they gave the example of the Thames River and how, like, they were doing studies on what was in that water. And basically, because the sewer line was connected to the river, they were finding what kinds of chemicals were in the population surrounding that area. And it was like really insane, the amounts of chemicals we're consuming regularly. So it's like, if you know that, wouldn't that motivate you to eat better things, So
that this is reminding us, she just whispered in my ear, tell them about the house. That there's a show on Apple TV called Home, and the first episode is this family in Sweden, and the father built this greenhouse over their house, and because their son's autistic, and it was a way for him to connect, to feel grounded even in the winter and everything like that. So they've got these plants and everything in their house, but he also built his own water treatment and filtration system so that it's kind of like self-sustaining, the plants in the greenhouse. And the daughter, she talks on there exactly kind of what you were saying. She was like, what it makes you think about is the makeup products you wear. When I wash it off, it's going down the drain to be filtered back into the food I'm going to eat, like the tomatoes
Definitely.
I'm going to pick. And she's like, and the food that we eat, whenever we go to the restroom, that's going to be
the plant that I'm then going to eat.
Which I think we're so detached from our food. We're so detached from our environment in that way that we don't think like that. That's not our thought process. Like, oh, this is going to go back into the environment. And so I think that's really interesting. I love that you're educating people on that, because it's something I don't think about. Really?
Yeah, and because that takes your why from something that's really personal about, like, this is how I feel, this is how I live, which is important, but then in a snap of a finger, it makes it global.
Right.
What we're putting in our bodies and how we're choosing to live our lives and stay healthy is also affecting our whole world.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And one thing that we just, in our last episode, we talked with this woman, Nancy Wonders, and it was a great episode. And one thing that really stands out is that 100% when you are living in your purpose and you're even having like a really shitty time walking through that purpose, or it's a really triumphant time walking through your purpose, you have this fulfillment and joy through the good and bad because you are in your purpose. You know what I mean? Because happiness is a byproduct sometimes of joy, but joy is that fulfillment, like I'm doing my why, like I'm pursuing my purpose. And I think that that's true for me. Like that really resonated with me. Does that resonate with you guys in this journey?
Definitely. That was really said very well. That fulfillment, I think, keeps you going, right? So it's not, like you said, it's not about the happiness you receive or even the bad times that come with that, but you continue to push because you're in fulfillment, you're in joy, you're in your purpose. And so I think that's kind of kept us going with our business. It's all good when we're able to sell a juice or at an event. Like that end product is great, but there was, machines breaking down or, juices breaking down or getting the wrong carrots or, so many different things that were so stressful in getting to that bottle at the end of the day. But especially looking back on it now, it's like, we had to go through that juice of breaking down. We had to go through those long nights of trying to juice before the event. Or, even the arguments of being a couple in business together, and so it's that knowing that we're fulfilling our why is I think so crucial.
At least in this stage, because I think I'm of the philosophy that we're constantly transforming and things become easy when you're in that zone, when you're in your purpose, right? So like right now things feel easy, and when they feel difficult, that's when I start to question, like, is there some resistance that is here for a reason, right? Like, am I feeling resistance because this is not really something that aligns with who I am? This is not something that aligns with my purpose. And I was telling Jarrett the other day, I think it was yesterday, we were talking about how I feel like the reason we were brought together is because our inner beings connected. So it's not necessarily Jarrett and Tana on the exterior that everybody sees, that even like how we recognize ourselves, but it's like the Jarrett who is so deep within him, who Jarrett may not even recognize on a daily basis. And then the Tana who is always deep within me, that I may not always be in tune with, have connected on a level that we don't fully understand yet. But it's moments where we're like thinking the same, or saying the same thing, or laughing at something that we haven't even said out loud, that it's like, oh, that's us. Like, that's us coming together. And I think with our business, there are moments where I feel that when things are just like, wow, this feels good. Like, this is so easy. And then there are moments where I'm like, I feel like this could be something different later. You know what I mean? And I'm already in this space where I'm like transforming into that next phase.
Yeah.
So,
Man, you are just speaking our language. We chat about this.
I have goosebumps.
I know. What?
Whenever-
Your nipples are hard?
Oh my god.
Uh-oh.
She said that the other day on the episode, so I felt it was free game.
I just get like goosebumps all over. Thanks, Haley. But I was just trying to say that everything you were saying is so like I feel that, and you feel that way in a lot of areas in life. Like, okay, your marriage, yes, like Michael and I feel connected to him, and some days he's not being that inner self that I know, and it's off. And then the days where it is on, it's like there's that connection, right? And I think in business, exactly the same thing. Whenever you're working towards and in that purpose, some days you have that like, oh, it's on, I feel it. And some days it's like, what's going on? You know, like this is not what I remembered.
We've been talking about for some time that we're just always becoming, kind of how you were talking about, we're just always transforming or whatever. But it's so interesting that you also touched on that while you're transforming and becoming, you're kind of just getting to know more of that deeper self that's already been there the whole time.
Right.
Yes.
It's almost
Right.
just like a sculpture, almost like we're just like whittling away like little pieces at a time, and we're constantly becoming this new beautiful version of ourselves if we're being self-aware.
right. That self-awareness is so important. And I feel like I know the moment when I realized that there is this need to be self-aware, right? Like this need to be in tune with yourself. 2017, I meet Jarrett in like September.
Yeah.
I meet him in September. June, July, I'm dating this guy, and it's weird and awkward and it doesn't feel right, but I'm trying to make it work. That ends in August. I start reading this book by Esther Hicks, his last name.
Heyo.
And it's called Ask and It Is Given. And my mom had been like pushing me to read this book forever. She bought it for me like probably a year prior to me actually reading it. And as I'm reading it, I'm like literally releasing things, like just like letting things go. And I get to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm dropping this guy, and I don't care if I'm in a relationship at all. Like, it doesn't matter. The next month, I meet him, and it's like, I think of him as my friend because I'm already in this space that I'm like, I'm not dating anybody. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And it just like kind of like, what is it called?
Snowball.
The snow? Snowball, yeah. The snow. It snowballs in a way that I don't expect. But it is this thing where I was like so in tune with myself that I didn't know her. I just met her. Like I met the Tana in September 2017 as I'm reading this book. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why was I wasting my time with this other person who does not add anything to who I am? Right. And then this guy who's like almost like the perfect match, if not the perfect match. Like suddenly I feel more like myself. Like it's so easy to be who I am with him. Whereas with the other person, it was like, it was tough. Like it was a workout. Like it shouldn't be like that. All of that to say is I agree with you. When you think about who you are and what your purpose is, your inner being, like it all comes together much easier when you understand that and you understand this journey of transformation.
Well, and I don't really understand honestly how this works, but when you have some sort of connection with another person like that, how I would describe my connection with Amanda, it's like your two inner beings like knew each other before time and outside
Yes.
of time or something. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know why that's connected, but it is. And those inner beings have seen each other and winked at each other and know what's up. And then they're just kind of like deep down inside of us, like, oh, they'll be fine, you know, they're going to make it. They'll catch up, you know, and
Yes.
Right.
it's
Catching
so nice.
up. Yeah.
So nice. And I feel so incredibly lucky that on this path you're talking about where shit breaks down and you're not sure and you don't know what's going on and maybe you can't see yourself looks like a stranger, but you have someone next to you that's like, hey, my inner being sees your inner being and we're gonna be fine.
Exactly.
And so that's something that I wasn't even thinking about talking about with you guys today, but that is a whole nother special aspect of you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, go get
Of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was happened to y'all, happened to us.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we were lucky enough that those inner beings were able to connect. And I guess, like you said, being self-aware to let those inner beings do that. And not be so resistant to those feelings or that emotion, that whatever that is that we feel that's connecting to us. That's a real thing that's happening. But a lot of times we get in the way of those things, right? We get in the way of that progress because of whatever we either have experienced, the conditioning we have, so many different things that we get in the way of that inner being connecting. And so, yeah, thankfully we were self-aware. Thankfully you all were self-aware and just allowed things to flow.
Yeah.
Well, can you kind of tell listeners where to go to be connected to y'all, and if they're interested in the juice, just kind of, because I know you guys have a lot going on and how you guys connect. So can you kind of tell us different ways we can follow you and connect with you?
Sure. Please listen to your inner being and follow us. It's speaking to you right now. But follow us on Instagram. We are the Juice Box CBD. We spell juice, J-U-C. So the whole handle is THEJUCBOX CBD. That's our handle on Instagram, Facebook, our YouTube channel, along as with our website. So thejuiceboxcbd.com.
And you can place orders on the website. We deliver every Saturday, usually between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. And that's for the DFW area only, unfortunately. So
not for long, I'm sure.
Transforming.
Yeah.
There you go. Speak it.
Yes.
That's awesome. And you also have a YouTube channel, correct? The Tana.
Yes.
We do. We're growing in that.
Yeah.
We're growing. Thankfully, Tana talked me into getting on board with the YouTube channel. But yeah, I think it's been good for us to really kind of expose what our why is and kind of follow along with our journey in this health and wellness, and just trying to, like she said earlier, to educate and bring others along and I guess show how easy it really is.
Yeah, and that is where we take the knowledge that we were providing at events. It's in the YouTube space, right? Because we're essentially doing the same thing, providing different recipes to be able to eat well, talking about mental health, talking about our relationship, just various things that provide emotional, mental, spiritual, physical health. So it's a variety of content, but I think it's all useful.
Totally useful. I love your channel. So thank you guys so much for making time to be with us for this episode. We're really excited to share it with everybody, and we wish you the best of luck in your nuptials and upcoming marriage next week. It's going to be so special, and you guys are totally soulmates. You are 100% made for each other, and we're so happy that you are taking this step together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us. We're so glad to be here and be talking to both of you. And we look forward to sharing with our platform all the great work that you guys are doing, not only with your podcast, but with your art and your floral shop. I think it's awesome. And I think it's going to be great to show everyone how wonderful you guys are too.
Oh,
Definitely.
well, if you must.
We shall. We shall.
All right. Well, we